Thank God for life is a common everyday expression on Tortola, the largest of the British Virgin Islands. But since Hurricane Irma smashed through the lush green landscape of the tiny British Caribbean territory less than 2 weeks ago, leaving at least 5 people dead, it has become a mantra. As the scale of the devastation has become clear, the islands are now bracing for another battering, this time from Tropical Storm Maria later this week, which appears to be following Irma's path. In the meantime, a patchwork combination of the hard work of local residents, private aid from the tax havens, myriad wealthy financial services companies and assistance from British troops will continue to help the islands find their feet. For their 30,000 residents, it is clear the road to recovery will be long and expensive. Absolutely hellish is how Boris Johnson described the devastation when he flew in last week for a one-day show of British commitment to the islanders. "I've never seen anything like it," the Foreign Secretary told his press entourage as he toured communities now almost submerged in piles of rubble, twisted galvanized roofing, broken trees, glass and household items. Up to 80% of the island's buildings have been damaged or destroyed. Johnson brought with him promises of £25 million in UK aid to add to the original £32 million announced by Theresa May immediately after the storm. But there is a catch. The £57 million total is, according to a UK government official who did not want to be named, to be divided between the BVI, nearby Anguilla and the Turks and Caicos Islands, all of them British dependent territories affected by the hurricane. Also in the mix is the island of Barbuda, part of the independent nation of Antigua and Barbuda but also severely damaged by Hurricane Irma. A man sits among wrecked buildings in Tortola. Photograph Georgina Stubbs. "But we are still in survival mode right now, still reacting to the situation," says Rusty Henderson, a British citizen and long-time resident in the islands. His small business formerly installed high-end internet and entertainment systems in luxury homes and resorts. After Irma, Henderson created a makeshift communications task force. "Up until the end of last week, we've had almost no communications with the outside world, or with each other," says Henderson. "Our little group has brought together the 3 competing local phone providers, the BVI government, UK Foreign Office, British Armed Forces and a whole bunch of outside aid groups, all trying to provide basic communications as soon as possible," says Henderson. The group's first success was finding a pile of unbroken telephone poles in the rubble and using those to raise antennas for mobile phone signals so police and emergency teams could communicate. More than 900 British troops have been helping local and Caribbean forces maintain order on the streets and clear roads. Shops were looted and up to 120 prisoners escaped after the prison building lost its roof and fencing during Irma. Local police, with the help of the heavily armed UK forces, have now rounded up almost all of the prisoners while some have returned voluntarily, according to the island's police commissioner, Michael Matthews. Royal Marines move a collapsed radio mast that has been blocking crucial access within the police station on Tortola. Photograph Joel Rouse. British Ministry of Defence. While the island's Premier, Orlando Smith, and the British Governor, Augustus Jaspert, continue to chair the emergency operations meetings in a damp wing of the new $116 million £85 million hospital. Upstairs on the 5th floor, doctors and hospital staff catch what rest they can during a marathon of medical heroism. "I lost everything in the storm," says Dorothy Sims, a hospital technician taking a moment outside to call her daughter. "At least that's what I have heard. I was here at the hospital during the storm and haven't even been able to go back since. There's too much to do." The loss of life was remarkably low considering the scale of the destruction, but the Air Department was working around the clock for the first week treating injuries. Others queued for entire days to get scarce prescription medication. Dr. Annalise Wilkins from Harrogate has lived on the island for 2 years, working at Peebles Hospital as an anaesthetist. She was on summer holiday in the UK when the hurricane struck. "It was really frustrating watching it from so far away," Wilkins says. "I felt so helpless. The staff there are so dedicated, I just knew they would stop working." Dorothy and Alvin Nibbs stand by the destroyed home in Tortola. Photograph Georgina Stubbs. Using Facebook and WhatsApp, Wilkins communicated with other doctors, friends, BVI businesses and aid agencies to drum up relief. "In a very short amount of time we created this massive network outside the islands," she says. Wilkins Group now has 21 doctors on the ground or on the way, with shipments of medicines, supplies and other equipment arriving from all directions, including from the island's booming financial services sector. For the size, the British Virgin Islands are exceptionally well connected, with Sir Richard Branson and Google's Larry Page among the most high-profile residents. Buildings on the private islands. Branson owns 2, Necker and Mosquito Islands, while Page owns nearby Eustatia, were destroyed, as were almost all buildings on the bigger adjacent island, Virgin Gorda. In the immediate aftermath of the storm, both billionaires flew their staff to safety and began organizing shipments of supplies to the communities of Virgin Gorda and the other islands. Branson's son Sam has set up a food distribution center in the North Sound area of Virgin Gorda, while the international charity Virgin Unite has been coordinating shipments of supplies and organizing evacuations. On paper, the offshore tax haven is also home to more than 400,000 businesses holding an estimated $1.5 trillion in assets, according to Capital Economics. Industry represents a direct plug into big money. The large law and accounting firms that create obscure offshore companies and contribute 62% of government revenues have capital and clients just a keyboard click away. Immediately after the storm, all of the BVI financial companies prioritized locating and providing safety for their employees, says Gerd Costa, BVI general manager of Switzerland-based VP Bank. With this in motion, many of us began initiatives to get essential help moving. Boats piled up at Nanny Cay. Photograph emergency response drones. VP Bank financed the medical airlift started by Wilkins, coordinating with People's Hospital and chartering planes to bring in the doctors and medicines. They also helped set up an aid coordination website, www.bvrelief.com, which, according to Costa, represents the beginnings of a large push from the private sector to funnel the right help into the islands in the most efficient way. Other companies such as local behemoth Harney Westwood and Rigels say they have begun similar initiatives, bringing tarpaulins, water and food, as well as offering simple services to the UK military such as lending vehicles and providing knowledgeable local guides. There is clear intent for the financial services sector to return. As soon as we have power and reliable internet service, I'm certain that almost all of the companies will come back and resume business as usual, says Costa. For most islanders, however, immediate solutions are still all that matter: shelter from the rain, which continues to pour, clean water, food and fuel. Everybody here is trying to do something, says Amos Biggs Hodge of Long Trench, on the hill above the Capital Road town. We're not waiting on outside help or government help at all. Guys who have trucks and digging equipment are out there clearing roads in their areas, and those of us who don't have equipment, we're just doing it by hand, moving power lines, poles, trees, anything to help to get things moving again. Biggs, a freelance mechanic, is at the lower end of the economic spectrum on the islands. Before the hurricane, he lived in one of several broken-down cars parked on a patch of land that belonged to his late mother. He passed the entire hurricane inside his Mitsubishi Montero. "Don't ever do that," he says, describing how he began riding out the storm in the front passenger seat but ended it crouched in the back as a piece of galvanized roofing tried to get inside. The car was lifted off the ground numerous times, rain flew about inside and his ears popped with the extreme low air pressures at the center of the storm. 2 full shipping containers tumbled across the road next to him, while power poles and cables fell all around him. Biggs' story is unusual only because it didn't involve a house. All around the island as people greet and hug each other again and ask what happened during the storm, the stories bear a remarkable similarity: roofs blown to pieces, windows and shutters smashed, possessions scattered, and lives spared as families huddled in cupboards, under stairs or in tiny cavities.